We've never seen a company have as bad a single month as Disney has had in this November. The box office has been something tremendously awful. More than $500 million lost in just 30 days. However, Bob Iger has managed to catapult past that in terms of disgracefulness. First, in front of an entire summit, he attacked Bob Chapek. And frankly, we are going to dismiss with his statements, and we are going to do so in a glorious fashion, showing you exactly how Bob Iger, not Bob Chapek, destroyed Disney. But then we'll also show you the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, stepped on the stage, took the microphone, and destroyed Bob Iger in a way we have never seen done before. Folks, this is a video unlike anything you've seen. Let's dive into it right now. Well, Bob Iger has gone utterly insane. It's the only conclusion I think that we can find, and that is that he apparently just doesn't have enough enemies. And apparently his November has not been bad enough. So he is aiming to make the final days of November be the coup de grace when it comes to annihilating his legacy. This out of Variety by Todd Spangler. Bob Iger criticizes Disney's moves under Chapek. I was disappointed in what I was seeing. Iger also addresses Disney pullback from X after Elon Musk's endorsement of, and then Todd Spangler, you need to do better. Do better, Todd Spangler, because you took a partisan approach to that. You took a position that is not unbiased. Elon Musk would counter what you're saying there, and you should put that into that coverage of the news. All right, well, let's get into the article, and then we're going to tell you why this is really sinister for what Bob Iger is doing. Actually, we'll just go ahead and say it right now. What is so despicable about this is that Bob Iger is disparaging Bob Chapek, and we are almost certain that Bob Chapek is under an NDA, a contractual NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, so he can't respond to these insults. But we, here on the Pro Channel, we can respond, and we shall, so hang tight. Bob Iger, just over 1 year after returning as Disney's CEO following the company's board's firing of previous chief Bob Chapek, said publicly that he was dismayed at the Mouse House's performance under Chapek's tenure. Iger, who had selected Chapek, formerly head of Disney's Parks division, to succeed him in February 2020, made the comments Wednesday at the New York Times Deal Book Summit in New York just before Elon Musk annihilated him. I was disappointed in what I was seeing in the transition period, and while I was out, he said, per the Times, I worked hard at distancing myself from it. He said Disney's current CEO succession planning process is robust right now, and added that he will definitely, surely, probably, maybe exit as chief executive when his recently extended contract is up at the end of 2026. Now, panel, I want to show you some really neat stuff that kind of blows a hole in everything that Iger is saying. Let me show you this real quick. So this is out of macrotrends.net, Macro Trends. The Disney 61-year stock price history. When was the high for the Disney stock? Well, let's take a look at this. Historical daily share price chart and data for Disney since 1962, adjusted for splits and dividends. Boy, wouldn't a dividend be nice about now? The latest closing stock price for Disney as of November 29th, 2023 is $92.50. So as of yesterday, $92.50. The all-time high Disney stock closing price was $201.91 on March 8th of 2021. Question to the panel: who was the CEO of the Walt Disney Company when it reached an all-time high, more than double what it is today?
Some guy named Bob.
Yes, a different Bob, I believe.
Bob Barker?
How about that?
That was never supposed to happen.
That's right, that's right. KMG, discuss for just a moment, and then I want to show you something else that's interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, we all know, the CNBC article, which basically needs to be framed on everyone's walls, pretty much, stated that the whole point of installing Chapek was they assumed that he would be a failure.
Yes,
they were just
he was the fall guy.
Yeah, he was the fall guy. They knew that they were like, oh, there's no way that this guy's going to succeed.
Why did Bob Iger leave in February of 2020? or let me put that in quotes.
Could it be the Wu flu?
Yes, the woof that came through, the coup that came through, Bob Iger said, let me out of here. I don't want to be a part of the collapse. And then guess what? It didn't collapse.
Didn't collapse.
It skyrocketed. It skyrocketed.
Everybody still got their bonuses. Everybody still got their bonuses. There was no recension of that. And, when the stock, basically once everything started opening back up and the subscriber numbers for Disney Plus exceeded expectations whenever it launched, that's whenever the stock just started exploding. And, this was not supposed to happen. The park numbers, the park revenues, they just shot up whenever people when people could start going back. And it was never supposed to be that way.
Now, let me show you something real quick, guys. This is fascinating to me. So, in 2020, when Bob Iger leaves, the stock is in a free fall. Remember, Chapek is supposed to come in and be the fall guy.
Yeah.
Bob Iger, with his connections in China, likely knows what's going on. We can't verify that, but the stock is in a free fall. After Bob Chapek comes in, despite the free fall in the market, Bob Chapek brings this thing up to its top, which it goes above $200. In the middle of March 2021. And then, following that, it has a little bit of a dip, but it's on the way back up middle of February 2022. Now, this is key. This is important. In February 18th, 2022, the stock was at $151. In other words, approximately $60 higher than it is today, and no signs that it was going to continue dropping. Why did that drop happen? Well, I would submit to you that there was a reason that it dropped and that it is one Bob Iger. What happened on February 24th of 2022? This is when Bob Iger stuck the knife in the back of Bob Chapek.
Yes.
Bob Iger came out at the same time that Chapek and Jeff Morrell of the Walt Disney Company, they had said, we're going to stay out of politics. We're not going to touch this Florida legislation that involves when children are going to be taught state curriculum regarding bedroom issues. We're not going to touch this. We don't want to be involved in that kind of a divisive issue with 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds and their parents. Bob Iger then comes out. And we know now, folks, we know now that Bob Iger actually was still a consultant with Disney, that he had not given up his office. And therefore, in doing so, Bob Iger seems to have been subverting and what would you say here? He was at least, I don't want to say something that's too far. We'll just say that he was not acting in the best interest of Disney when he put out this tweet and said, I'm with the president on this. If passed, this bill will put vulnerable young LGBTQ people in jeopardy. Now, that has passed, and Florida remains. Now, whatever your political beliefs are, it still remains. Florida is still there, and I don't think that there has been, horrific crimes.
Not just still there. The population has increased with in-migration.
Yes.
The voter rolls have switched from being Democrat to Republican.
Yes.
The economy has boomed compared to, for example, Gavin Newsom's California.
Yes.
So it didn't just get better, it got a lot better.
And we should say that while we're not a political channel, we cannot ignore the reality, which is that a mass exodus over the last years has occurred primarily to 3 states, although also to some others, and those are Florida, Texas, Tennessee. And taking a look at the Disney stock now. Pay attention, folks. About February 18th, remember, that's when Bob Iger puts out the tweet. That's when we get the protest. That's when we get all of the people at Pixar and Lucasfilm and all across the Disney properties, all getting out there with their signs. Bob Iger, we know, we suspect that Bob Iger was taking a plan. Now, Bob Iger didn't like it, apparently, when it was up here, when it was up playing at the top of the 100 mark towards $200. Apparently that wasn't good. Bob Iger says it was a really bad thing. He didn't like the direction. And so Bob Iger puts his nose into Disney. He takes a hit on them. He goes in opposition to what Jeff Morrell and Bob Chapek want to do. He goes into opposition of what the official position of Disney is, despite the fact that he is there as someone, as a consultant at Disney, as someone who owns one of the top offices in the C-suite. And what is the trajectory afterwards? Drop, 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 drop. Why is it dropping? It's dropping, in my viewpoint, because Disney is wrapped in turmoil. It is chaos. You had Lightyear coming out where they demanded to put scenes back in Lightyear. Lightyear then bombs at the office. You had Strange World which they demanded it be focused on a particular thing that was part of the Reimagine Tomorrow program that Bob Iger wanted. It collapses at the box office. Everything has collapsed at the box office as part of this Reimagine Tomorrow program that Bob Iger instituted and brought in these crazies because he wanted to do a political run. And where is it at today? Well, folks, Bob Iger, who knows best, Bob Iger, who's got the Disney company going the right direction in every single way, Bob Iger, who comes out and thumbs his nose at Bob Chapek. Bob Iger is sitting here at $92.50 USD. We're not giving you financial advice.
After spending a year, quote, fixing things.
Yes.
Headed down.
And lost $500 million at the box office alone in 30 days of November. Something that I thought was impossible. If you had told me that any studio could do that, I would have laughed years ago and said, "That there's no way. There's no way."
Can I suggest, and this I pose this to you, Pro. Can I suggest that had Chapek just stuck with Morel's position, Disney would not be suffering this way. Disney would have pivoted the other direction, and they never would have gone fully political. And they would have still tried to subtly push things with the woke agenda, but they never would have completely leaned into it like they did from the moment that he made the hostage video.
I think that Bob Chapek was the biggest mistake he made. It was the mistake that he made, was succumbing to these ideologues, these ravenous, crazy partisans who clearly have destroyed the company.
And
we've got Wish animators coming out saying, the whole thing's been taken over by activists.
And I will make the point that as much as the huge controversy was about that bill, it was those videos that got released of everybody behind the scenes chuckling with glee. Oh boy, they encouraged me to put all this stuff into these movies that I'm aiming at the kids. That's when families said, what they do in Florida politics is one thing, but what they do to my kids all across the country, I don't think we're going there anymore. Thanks.
Not so secret agendas. KMG, your thoughts?
I mean, look, Iger knew what he was doing. And, I mean, we all know that he was running a shadow campaign. And he basically got together with all of the executives that he had put in place before he left and came up with this basically plan of action, which he knew was going to put Chapek in a very, very bad position because of the executives and the people that had been hired at Disney under all the executives, basically the activists that he had installed. So once he made that statement, and I think we all know, we've seen the videos, we've seen the emails, that's whenever everything at Disney became very, very politicized. The emails that were distributed to employees, the training sessions that Disney employees had to attend, basically set the sort of woke sessions where we had they had to listen to all these different people talking about how they're going to ensure that the bill is repealed and they're going to, get even more politicized. That is basically what drove Chapek. That is what started the drive to get Chapek.
And something else very important. It wasn't just what they said about politics or about any of the rest of it. It's what they did from a business point of view based on that. When they announced to the world, we've been presented with some of the best pilots and ideas for new series for Disney Plus we've ever seen, but we rejected them because they weren't woke. When they said, we've been weeding out advertisers that we don't approve of their political stance on this stuff because, by God, we only want the good people. What they not only did was turn down money, actual income. They said to all of their competitors, hey, here's some of the best stuff in the world. You take it. We're not. How the hell do you run a business that way? Put aside however you feel about politics and sex and everything else. It's about admitting something has high quality and saying we're going to turn it over to somebody else because those things don't vaporize because they said no. They're out there in the marketplace for everybody else to grab onto.
For Bob Iger to get back in command, I don't know how many billions, tens of billions of dollars they were willing to waste away, but they were willing to get rid of a massive amount of worth of this company and investment, in my opinion, in order to get him back in control. And I think it's a partisan thing. I want to go back now to the article and see what else is said here. Folks, I mean, this is just amazing. It Since returning to Disney, Iger said he has been, quote, fixing a lot of problems that the company has had and dealing with a lot of challenges. Folks, I'm here to tell you, this company was doing remarkably better than it had ever done before when Bob was supposedly gone. So whatever the problems are he's fixing his own problems. Lou, how long does it take to make a movie, typically, in today's time? What would you say is the gestation?
You mean from, hey, let's put on a show to getting it on the screen? A couple of years at least, maybe 3?
Which would mean that almost certainly everything coming out today, including, we know that Wish was started in development in 2018.
Yeah.
We know that the Marvels was started in development about the same time, about 2019. All of this is Bob Iger. All of this started under Bob Iger. This is all an
not
Iger
just him,
issue.
all the people he put in the key positions creatively and business-wise.
That is exactly right. We have yet to get. In fact, do you all know the first movie that we will get that was greenlit under Bob Chapek? Does anybody know the first movie?
It's Deadpool 3, right?
That is correct. Deadpool 3 will be the first film that Bob Chapek approved. Keep that in mind, folks.
Yep.
At the Dill book, let's see, wait a minute. Some of those were brought on by decisions that were made by my predecessor, he said. While others are just basically the result of a tremendous amount of disruption in the world and in our business. In other words, none of this is Bob Iger's fault, according to Bob Iger.
Wrong.
At the Dill Book Summit, Iger also was asked about Disney's decision to pull ad spending from X, after X owner Elon Musk agreed with a user on the platform who had asserted something. We're not going to read this because of where we're at, but I'll say again, this Variety piece is not acting as they should in terms of offering us non-biased, objective journalism. Elon Musk would disagree strongly with the characterization of this, and so I think that both sides should be presented. I'm not saying that they should not present this side. I'm saying that both sides should be presented.
And another thing, if I am an advertiser, let us say, and Bob Iger says something I really don't like, does that mean I reject advertising at Disney in general because I don't like what the boss said?
Let's go one step further.
But that's what he's calling for us to do about Elon and whatever he said.
Let's go one step further. Disney is they're always advertising on TikTok. Do we agree with the leadership and ownership of TikTok?
They certainly do.
Will they ever, if TikTok did something, I don't know, that was supportive of other government styles that are authoritarian, you think Disney would ever decide to get off of TikTok? I don't think so. Just a thought.
No, I doubt it because, they want someday to have that expansion land next to the park in Hong Kong where all that other stuff is.
I'm glad, guys, that I'm glad that they took this principled stand and stripped Disney advertising off of X. It seems to have gone over real well. I mean, they've lost $500 million in November, so good for them. Way to pull your ads off of social media. Excellent job. All those investors, all of you who have money in the Disney stock, I'm sure you're applauding this principled decision.
Let's put it down to numbers for a minute. Assuming they pull the advertising, and therefore 1 million people who use X every day don't see an ad for Wish and aren't aware of it or don't care about it and don't go. Would Disney like to have those million people back buying tickets?
Oh, I think at this point they take 10,000.
Yeah.
Not if they're the wrong people.
The
And
rubes,
that, of course,
the
is the
rubes, the
point.
flyover rubes. Let's continue reading. Iger disputed reports that Disney was looking to sell its linear TV businesses, although he said the company was constantly evaluating their worth to the company. That's talking about ABC, ESPN, etc. Iger was Disney's CEO from 2005 to 20 and returned as interim chief executive after the ouster of Chapek in November 2022, but that also is incorrect. Iger never left the company. Iger was a consultant the entire time, and that is why he was acting in a way that was not in congruency with what the CEO, the boss, wanted to do.
We constantly make shower jokes, but if the guy doesn't even leave his office, he's not gone.
That's correct.
It's really that simple. I mean, putting all the shower jokes aside.
Managers come and managers go, but Bob Iger is forever.
But the way
He's like
talking,
death and taxes.
the way he's talking, it makes it seem as though it was Bob Chapek who's been running Disney for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Now, this was when Bob Iger spoke at this conference, and he took the jab at Elon Musk. And for those out there who have not yet seen it, I want to show you exactly how Elon Musk responded 1, Bob Iger.
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f yourself. But go f yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
Look, okay, so Elon's not wrong, but, gosh, the world would be much different if Bob Iger had ceased to have influence in the Disney company when he actually left his post.
The world would be better, honestly.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, right? They lost their toy, their plaything, their subtle cultural manipulation tool in Twitter to Elon Musk. Could you imagine if Elon Musk disrupted Disney the way he disrupted the mouthpiece of culture, which is Disney right now?
Listen, we're laughing about it, but Nelson Peltz and Ike Perlmutter, you better believe they ought to be reaching out to Elon Musk. I'm not here to tell you what's going to happen there, but again, look at this stock. Folks, look at when it's at the highest. That's Bob Chapek. That's the Chapek rise.
And
down here is bad little Bobby.
And here's the weird thing, right? Because I gave him a hard time because I still want to call him cheapskate when it comes.
He wasn't perfect. The show buildings in the parks are stupid.
Yeah, the theme park redevelopment that he did with the revised 4th version of Project Gamma, which is not even
weak-kneed Chapek. Weak-kneed Chapek.
Well, but at the same time, he was a bean counter when they needed a bean counter, and then they were stuck with all this Bob development, the Iger development stuff. It's the worst possible situation, and yet he was still making the best of it. Iger can't find his way out of wet paper bag right now, and I've been disappointed for a long time. Look, as somebody who actually owns stock in the company, I would say, bro, can I get back to $200, please? Because I'll sell.
You know what I think has happened here is that Iger is an alpha among alphas. He has sat at the table with some of the biggest financial players in the world. He has sat across the table from Xi Jinping. He has sat across the table from Steve Jobs. He has been there. He has made the deals. Yep. And if you need somebody to be the king of charisma and schmooze and make the deal happen when he has the funds to do so, Bob Iger is the guy to make it happen. But if you need somebody to come in and handle a company in distress, and if you need someone to admit that they have failed, you're talking to the wrong guy, because this guy cannot do that. He cannot go back and adjust what he has done. He can't admit that he's been erroneous. His politics have destroyed the company.
Yeah, go KMG.
Chapek's biggest sin was he took the power away from Hollywood when he got into Disney. He created the Disney Media Entertainment Distribution Organization, which essentially took the power away from the creatives, i.e. the purse strings, and said, this group over here is going to basically be your oversight. Like, they are going to control the budgets. You'll still be able to you can still greenlight a script, but you're not going to have any sort of oversight over the money. And as we clearly know from the Scarlett Johansson lawsuit, Chapek was not a Hollywood guy. He was not that, let's go for, 5 martini lunches at Spago. Like that's just not who he was. And that's who Iger always was. And so the restriction that the restriction of that power from the executives at Disney, the Hollywood executives, that angered them. And that's essentially where, they had no idea that he was going to create that organization, because that is something that it roughly happened about 6 months into his reign is when it was announced. And it never got fully implemented until basically I think it was like a year after, the whole COVID insanity.
And KMG, it's not just that it happened. It's the announcing that it happened. And here's why. Those Hollywood people, do they care what the boss of their own company thinks and how they get restricted? Sure. But they care what their peers at the other studios think of them. Mm-hmm. And if there is an impression, rightly or wrongly, in this case rightly, that their power and their ability to say yes with no feedback, with no disagreement, has been lessened.
Yep.
They are less. They go to the parties and aren't as important, aren't as big a shot. And who's the biggest shot matters in that town. It
does. It really does. But I look, I mean, I think a lot of it was because the rug got pulled out from underneath Bob twice politically on the outside, like outside of Disney. And he wasn't going to get the support he needed to actually run for an office. He still won't. I mean,
he wanted to try to pull into the moderate wing of the Democrat primaries, and he found out that there was no such thing. And there was no room for him. Correct. And he had compromised the organization that he'd been running to try to make that happen, and that's why you ended up with all these films that we're now suffering underneath now. So let's explain that culture. For those out there, because many people are watching the channel for the first time, they may not know that we suspect that Bob Iger, and there's been plenty of reporting on this, but we suspect that Bob Iger was planning a presidential run years ago.
He wanted to be the left's Donald Trump, the successful business titan who comes in and acts practically because he's a business guy and runs things on that side.
But the way that he had to do that was because he did not have a political background necessarily. He had to move the Walt Disney Company, the thing that he controlled, to the left, and he did that through instituting DEI ESG initiatives that were more radical than any corporation that I've seen. And things like Reimagine Tomorrow and the Story Matters Group, which have destroyed
the
Disney.
Company.
And you've got to understand the politics. He wants to be a politician, but he doesn't know what Nancy Pelosi knows, what all these other people know. And what they knew was that they had to appeal to the farther out part of their party, or else they'd get primaried out.
He understands the Hollywood version of politics. He did not understand the actual side.
And the cost of him not understanding has been the decimation of a once grand corporation. I want to bring in Tommy and Nolan. You guys haven't had a chance to weigh in. What are your thoughts?
I, for years, thought that Bob Iger at his core was a businessman. Like his book and everything about, striking that deal with George Lucas, making miracles happen, saving Disney after the chaos that happened at the end of the Michael Eisner era. Which is crazy to me now is I just can't see this guy without thinking this dude is just a politician at heart.
Yep.
I don't believe his true value really is for the benefit of the left or the right. He has used the Walt Disney Company, which is a corporate company built off entertainment and currency, money. And he's used that to try to fund a political campaign. And what that has done is, one, it makes it look like a joke compared to other people that are going to be running. And honestly, seeing as how he has to, be careful about how he presents certain themes and say China or something like that. If you go and say one thing in one country and then don't double down it on another, you look like a hypocrite. And that doesn't just make the right-leaning that already tended to not like your viewpoint on things, it also starts making the left not like you either, because seems like you don't even care about the values. It seems like it's more about power. If you're just going out of hey, what's the most controversial thing I can put out there in order to push my political agenda or my political campaign, you don't really get anywhere and you just have egg on your face. And now, whether he goes back into politics or not, in fact, if I were him, I would say if he wants to stay true to what his ego is presenting him, he should be trying to run away to some sort of politics-esque thing, because he cannot save this company, and he's just going to look like a joke. I mean, we all know about the most famous of the right, how well he's known for running businesses, but Bob Iger is not that type of person, and I don't think that's going to be in his benefit if he ever decides to go into politics. And it's sad that
I think he's done with politics. I think that's over, and that's why he's come back to Disney and got through that legacy.
That's all true, Nolan, and what you said inspires a thought in me. If Bob Iger had come up in his life through the studios, through Hollywood, and not through ABC news, even as a weatherman. The ABC News organization is a political organization, and everybody in there thinks that they understand politics better than the average schmo. That arrogance, that hubris that comes from that background has been his Achilles heel.
I agree. I mean, I just want to say, like, it's very clear now that Iger has always been about Bob Iger. He has never truly loved the Disney brand. Michael Eisner actually did care for the Disney brand.
Yeah, he did. He just lost all the people that made him more successful. Katzenberg. We can go down a list.
Yeah.
But KMG, you speak my language, so you understand that the company is always the most powerful when you have two people that work. One as a bean counter, one as a creative.
Yep.
And we haven't had that in a long time. Iger stopped being efficient when it came to either of those things. And so Disney suffered for that. And not only that, I'm going to suggest something that his political will and influence has done nothing but set back the causes of people that are in the LGBT community, or LGB community, excuse me.
Another good point. That's another good point.
By miles and miles. In fact, they have created an adversarial situation politically for anybody that falls into any of those categories. That is disgusting and frustrating.
You're saying Bob Iger then is a faux white knight coming in and destroying the goodwill between. Yes, I think to come back to that, I think that if Disney needed a CEO who had been formerly a weatherman, Punxsutawney Phil would be a better candidate than Bob Iger at this point. Tommy, give me your thoughts, then we're going to bring in a special guest for a final wrap up.
Well, I got to say that, Nolan, what you've actually said made something click in place in my brain, because for the life of me, for the longest time, I was just unable to understand why Bob Iger would go out, buy up all of these franchises, and then just completely run them into the ground. Like the Star Wars franchise, the Marvel franchise, Pixar to a lesser degree. But, the idea that he's only doing this for himself, that he doesn't care about anything but himself, and that he just sort of bends with wherever the wind blows him, it all makes sense. Like, he was buying these properties ostensibly to tap or to expand Disney's market in young boy merchandising and products, right? And then suddenly, when that became unprogressive, and it became sort of the we don't actually focus on these guys anymore, we got to focus on the girls, and he was like, okay, sure, you know what, we'll just go that way, that's fine. And that attitude explains so much about the decline of both Star Wars and Marvel. I've got to mull this over a bit more, but Tommy, thanks, Nolan.
Tommy, I don't think he ever thought it that far through. I think, and this is with great respect to so many of our viewers and members, the kind of people that say, oh, well, Apple will buy Disney. Oh, well, Microsoft will buy Disney. That's Bob Iger. Well, of course I'm going to buy Lucasfilm because I don't want anybody else to buy it. We should have it. Of course I'm going to buy Fox no matter how much the price gets driven insanely up by Comcast, knowing they're going to goad me into doing it, because if we get it, they don't, and I win. And I'm the guy that put together all these great deals. I don't think he was thinking 5 minutes past the point of the success of the deal to what am I going to do with it now that I've got it. No. I really don't.
This too long. Not to run this too long, but it's the mentality of like giving a 10-year-old a company. You go by what the parent, whichever parent you're with, you just say yes to whatever they're saying and just agreeing, nodding your head, chasing whatever the trend is. And the solution to everything is, oh, just buy it. It's going to be fine. Just buy what works. And if you don't keep watering the figurative plant, it's just going to die. And next thing you know, there's nothing but ash where you once stood.
Yeah. He's great at buying. He's not great at caring for. We're going to go to the final word now. We could do this forever. And folks, we'll have the pro show coming up. So check that out. We'll continue this conversation. But final word goes to the co-anchor of That Part Place, the YouTube channel, Vash Sky Vash.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on a tremendous set of circumstances where Bob Iger has capped off the worst November in any company's history for the entertainment industry by taking on Chapek, and, well, I think we've done a fair enough job of showing that's utterly inaccurate, and also managing to make Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, take him down in a way I've never seen on stage. Your thoughts,
Speaking of Elon Musk, Pro, could you do me a big favor and go to my Twitter account? There is a video that I desperately want to play for the audience before we leave. So while I'm talking, we can play that after. It's by Showcase of Wishes. He has a video that he just posted. It's from the Elon Musk interview today, and it is very profound. But Pro, you mentioned earlier that he's the deal maker, right? And I've been trying to tell people that I don't think he's really the deal maker. I don't think he has been. For quite some time. Yes, he was able to coax Steve Jobs after a considerable payout, one of the largest in Hollywood history, to sell the rights to Pixar. But I mean, I remember this famous story of him in front of the other 31 owners of the NFL attempting to get his Carson deal done, in which the Raiders and Chargers would share a stadium in Southern California together. And if you notice, well, we have the Chargers and the Rams in Inglewood, and that's because when Iger started his meeting, he said, well, technically, I've been one of the biggest monetary supporters of the NFL, right? And Jerry Jones is like, what? You're not the biggest supporter. It's your shareholders that have been paying the money as doled out by the Walt Disney Company. He still hasn't gotten the Marvel rights back from Comcast over there in Florida. They've had the Marvel rights now. Disney has, at least for the studio properties, for what, since before 2012, 2009, something like that. I can't necessarily remember right now. It's a little bit late, but he still hasn't been able to finalize that deal. And they tried back in like 2015. They really did try, and then that went up in smoke. And Comcast decided, well, we're just going to invest in our Spider-Man attraction and give it a whole new refresh, because we're going to have this for quite some time. And that was a big fu
and Hulk
to Iger
and Hulk too. They spent
Hulk
money on
too.
Hulk.
Yeah,
and Iger couldn't convince Rowling to give him Harry Potter.
Right, exactly.
Let's go to the clip now, Vash, that you've
please.
sent our way via Showcase of Wishes.
And you think that the public is going to say that Disney is making a mistake?
Yes.
And they're going to boycott Disney?
They already are.
And you think that the public is going to say...
There it is.
One more time.
That Disney is making a mistake?
Yes.
And they're going to boycott Disney?
They already are.
There it is.
So the richest man in the world is declaring that there's already a boycott of the Walt Disney Company.
This is the first year that Disney has not had a $1 billion hit at the box office since 2014. He is exactly right about this.
Elon Musk is a financial genius. He read the same 10K that everybody here has now. I believe all of us have read it, and we all read exactly what we saw in it. I mean, it is a glorious thing. I mean, people took note of the things that Lou put together, of the things that obviously John F. Trent put together, because those articles hit everywhere, and they inspired other articles like over at The Hill and other places. That Park Place sparked an entire discussion because we're willing to look at the financial documents and report on it. And you guys that did that, well done.
Well, we said when we brought on John Trent, and this was just announced, what, a week, 2 weeks ago? We said
10 days ago.
We intend to totally change the way that pop culture news is analyzed and presented. We intend to be the premier location for pop culture news and analysis. And thanks to John F. Trent and people like LW Ghost, we've done just that, and we're just getting started here on this channel and beyond. Folks, make sure that you go find individuals like Culture Casino on his channel. Fantastic, amazing content, as well as Vash Sky on That Park Place, the YouTube channel. Tommy Tables doing all kinds of member-exclusive content on mine. KMG, Nolan, thank you for being here. Highly recommend folks find you wherever you are. One last time, folks, before we go, you just got to hear it.
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f*** yourself. But go f*** yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
Folks, we got a lot of big shows coming up. The Pro Show the Renegade Online Show Sunday, and the 50K celebration, where we will announce major changes to the channel and to member services. It's going to be incredible. Get ready. We are just getting started. The mainstream media can't understand how we do it, but hey, every time you like, share, subscribe, and you click it and stick it to the algorithms, the notification bell, it does just that. Every time you comment, we appreciate everything you do. So until next time, in just a few hours, we'll see you then. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Make sure to catch The Pro Show Thursdays 5 to 7 Eastern Time. Entertainment Explained, The Culture Curve Conquered, live with Pro and all his friends.